Perfect. Okay, what's going on, everybody? It is Jack, one of the co-founders here at Spark Agency, and today what we are going to be diving into is explaining and kind of showcasing the back-end automations that we have built for our client acquisition. Inbound, outbound, really doesn't matter. Now, some of you might have seen this on our Instagram. When I kind of explained it, but we basically switched systems, moved over from make.com N8N. It has been completely game changing, and just a way better user face, way more customization. Although definitely you need to be much more tech savvy. This is going to be a two-part video. So there's going to be one where Carter explains the portion that he built out, and then I explain the portion that I built out. Two of them coexist, but yeah, if you haven't seen that video, you can watch them either or. So yeah, let's dive into it. This is not a tutorial video, by the way. All right, we want you guys we want people to buy this from us. If you are technical, you'll be able to understand this a little bit, and when I kind of flash through the nodes and what we're using. But the long and short of it is, this has taken us many months to build out, and we want you to look at this and say like, wow, this shit is super cool, and want to hire us. So I'm just going to be going through it and kind of the logic behind it, and then showing you the bits and pieces, but I'm not going in and explaining how to build it. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so, at the core, basically what we wanted to build, and the vision that we had behind, or the vision that we had for this, was we wanted to take a traditional SDR, appointment setter, BDR, and just make the whole experience, our product, better through and through. We wanted it to be able to have the same capabilities, but be able to do more things faster, cheaper, and that's pretty much exactly what we've done. I mean, there's a bunch of different other elements that play into it, but yeah, it's pretty cool. So it works on three things. You kind of have to imagine three different platforms. So VAPI is our phone agent, okay? And so we use the API to make calls, transient calls into our operators, or into our agents. That basically will create the agent. That's all done through here. And then so that hosts the call. Then we go into the GHL and our go high level, and this is where all the calls are made. So it's really nice because the way that we've set it up is we use go high level as kind of our CRM to manage all of our leads, our incomings. We have pipelines that are all attached to this automation, which I'll get into in a sec. But we make all of the calls from this automation right here and the other three that we have. And so this is basically the post all in here, that will make the call and actually fetch the agent to start the call. So this is basically, if you can imagine this is what our agent sounds like, acts like, how he's supposed to talk, blah, 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 all through in here, plus a couple other, extra things as well. And then, of course, let me just go and do this right here. This is the system for which it is able to detect how the call went and what are the next steps. So one of the major challenges that we were facing back in December and in November was, okay, it's one thing to get the agent to call, but if we wanted it to be able to communicate with the CRM, how were we going to be able to do that and to be able to tell it how the call went? Was an appointment booked? What were the other outcomes of the appointment, X, Y, and Z? So that is how this is all done. It's in this scenario here. Previously, it was done in make.com, but this just works so much better. There's way more customization for us to be able to use, and I'll get into this, the AI agent here, and why the classification of the calls are so much better. But yeah, this is honestly a really good place to start. So essentially, we wanted it to be better than the traditional SDR. So in a traditional space, right, what's going to happen? The SDR is going to call, and not just call once. It's going to call a couple. They're going to call a couple different times. They're going to call the first time. If they don't get a no answer, maybe they're going to call again in a week. Not all of them double dial. But what ends up happening over time is, as the day drags on, the quality of the calls from the SDR dwindles. Sometimes, maybe they didn't get a pickup on this one if they're not using an automated dialer, and they don't want to call that person back. So what this system allows us to do and us to bring to our clients is a foolproof way, in 100% sound way, that every client is going to be getting the same level of attention, whether it's the third, fourth, fifth, sixth call, whatever it is. They're never going to be at the end of the day and the agent's getting sloppy. Everyone's going to be accounted for as well, as another big thing. So every lead that comes into the list in this scenario for our outbound that we're running right now, it's going to be 4 calls at minimum every single time. That's the standard. Every lead gets that. So it's 2 on the first day once the lead gets put into the funnel, and then 2 a day later. If they still don't answer after all 4, then we put them into a different sequence. But yeah, once the call is finished, essentially what happens, the end of call report that is all kept in the logs through VAPI gets sent to this automation here in N8N. And then we send a HTTP request to basically fetch the customer number from Go High Level, which it'll then pull the contact that's associated to that number. Obviously, no one has the same number unless there's duplicate contacts. So it's the most surefire way to always make sure you're getting the right contact. And then we go into Go High Level and then we actually get the contact. And then from here, this is pretty cool. This took me a while to build out. I'm not super technical, but getting more technical. This is basically the filter that is going to be able to decipher between which call it is. So it's just some basic JavaScript that basically it looks for the one tag, outbound call 4, that's obviously the last one, and then all of the potential ended reasons for why that call wouldn't have ended, if that makes sense. Or, sorry, why that call would have not gone through and no one would have picked up. So customer didn't answer, went to voicemail, silence timed out, or the Twilio failed to connect. There's a couple more, but those are the kind of the big 4 that we see in our use case at least. And then, yeah, it does this for all of them. So this one is outbound call 3, and then so on and so forth, right? You can, you get the general idea. And then from there, and by the way, this is all if they don't pick up. I know I maybe didn't mention that properly, but and we'll get into if they do pick up after. And then so for what happens afterwards is they all funnel through down here, and they go into their respective sequences. And so essentially this GHL function, what it'll do is it'll just update them with the next tag in the sequence, which will then trigger a new automation. So for example, if we go over here, to call number 2, it's waiting for a tag that comes in as outbound DNA, which is the first time that they didn't answer the call. And then as soon as that it gets tagged back from the scenario right here, call number 2, it'll directly translate and fire this automation, which then calls them again with the new data that we want put into this call, which it really doesn't change that much, but yeah, so that's how that works. And then it's the exact same for all these 3, the same process, cycles back through, does the same thing. It cycles back through the top. If it was call number 4, it would go through and then it would be put into the long-term nurture sequence. So if they don't answer off the 4th call, then boom, we know that they're going to be put into the long-term nurture sequence, which is usually just like calls back or text messages or emails. It depends on kind of what the type of lead it is. So yeah, that's if they don't answer. Once again, the biggest thing is it makes all of these calls within a 2-day span. It never misses a call. It makes sure everyone gets called. So let's say if you had a lead list of 200 people that just got put in for the day, it's going to make sure that 400 calls are made, plain and simple, on day 1, and then another 400 are made on day 2. It's never going to miss. Make sure everyone's accounted for, and it does it at a fraction of the price. For example, today we booked another 3 meetings on our calendar with 180 leads. I believe it was 183. And to be interestingly enough, 2 of the appointments came from the double dial. So they didn't pick up on the first one, but they did pick up on the second one. So just goes to show the importance. And then so, yeah, we can get into what happens here if they do answer. One of the biggest things is these AI agents. So before, I can show you actually a make scenario before what we had. So this is what our scenario looked like on Make. This was basically, this is this scenario right here in Make. And so what we would have is just, if the call went through and they did answer, we would have this GPT module that would basically be in charge of classifying what the outcome was. If it was an appointment booked, if they said, fuck you, don't call back, X, Y, and Z. And it was pretty messy. Like, the prompt wasn't great. We're still learning a little bit on prompting, but getting better each day. But it just didn't really as accurate as we would have liked. A lot of times it was misinterpreting them and tagging them incorrectly, and so it would go in and then it tags it in the Airtable, but I'll pick it back up in this automation. So what N8N allows you to do is to actually create an AI agent where the prompt can be, it uses OpenAI as the chat model. I'll just zoom in here. It uses OpenAI as the chat model, but inside the agent has its own prompt that we have written out, where we're able to include the entire transcript, as well as, you know, all these are all the different taggings that it could give it. Or the different outcomes, I apologize. And then classification rules. So we give technical failure, you know, each of these has its own classification plus an example, you know, that it's able to go and look back on and be able to say, okay, this is, you know, put the 2 and 2 together. And then some critical rules at the bottom, you'll output only the outcome. And then, yeah, that's pretty much that. Now, the biggest thing that it's used only a couple times, which we didn't have before, is the ability to include memory. So it's just a simple memory. You know, we dabbled with the idea of using a vector database, and it just wasn't, it didn't make sense for this. It's a bit extreme, but it's just a simple Google Sheets database that if it's having trouble making the call on its own before it tags it, it knows to go and reference this Google Sheets module. It's literally just a store that has a bunch of different transcript blurbs or pieces of transcript from previous calls that would warrant that type of classification. So if it's unsure, it can look back on those, and so far we have had literally, I think it's been like 98% success rate with that, just in terms of actual classifications. And if you know, from an agency standpoint, the data is really valuable. We want it to be classifying it properly about why the call was, or what, sorry, not why the call was, but what are the biggest outcomes it is getting from the calls. So is it going to be that the assistant ended the call first, meaning that usually that's going to be a good conversation because the person isn't hanging up, the prospect isn't hanging up the phone right away, or any of that stuff. Call back today, obviously. And then so the final step in here is it'll go through and filter out each one. If there's an appointment booked, it'll obviously tag that in Go High Level as an appointment booked. We have the calendar sync, so it shows up right onto our calendar or onto the prospect's calendar. There's callback later, callback tomorrow, so it'll know based off of the transcript. If someone says, hey, call me back tomorrow, it'll classify that and put it into that stage in the pipeline. Same thing with callback today. Urgent follow-up, so what that's going to be is like if they almost get to the point of booking an appointment and then for whatever reason there's an error or something, it's going to put them into urgent follow-up. The AI knows how to classify that. And then obviously DNC, which is our DCB, which is, you know, if they're pissed and not interested, they just have no use for our product, right? So, yeah, that's pretty much that. That's kind of how the whole back end works, and it's taken us a while to build out for sure. In N8N, it was different, but just on Make, actually getting the logic behind it all. And just before I head out, I want to, I'll show you guys the, I'll show you guys what the pipeline looks like. It's super simple, just in GHL, and this is why it's so nice that it integrates with both, because all of these just go into their respective pipeline stages based off of the call outcomes. So yeah, that's pretty much that, guys. Like I said, go check out Carter's video that he's going to be putting out about how we actually get the ICP and compile the list, and then just basically the whole automation of it runs on a schedule. And yeah, other than that, thanks for watching.